order. We're in a different place, so we got to pass mics. So everybody hold the mic up so Karen can get the minutes behind us. Welcome, everybody. People online, ask your questions because Lisa will get them up here and we'll answer them at the end of the discussions. When you come forward to speak, come up to the microphone, give your name, rec card number, and the time will be 2 minutes. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, if you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have a quorum. All are here except one member. Patty couldn't make it today. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the September 14th meeting? Being none, they'll stand approved as presented. First up, golf operations, Pat O'Hare.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Got a couple slides, kind of a recap of the last 30 days or so. It's a good looking logo. Thank you. All right, here we go. Thanks, Terry. Just wanted to get everybody updated. We've had one event out of the Golf Ops, our Bye Bye Birdie tournament, which was September 16th, and you can see the remainder of the schedule there. Our next one is the Golf Expo, which I'll have a little bit more to say, and then the 28th annual Octogenarian tournament later in this month. Final results of the Bye Bye Bermuda. We had 94 players. They played at Pebblebrook. It was a shotgun start on a Saturday morning. I think one of the best things that we've done with this program is that we've moved our events over to the weekends. We just find ourselves so busy Monday through Friday that Saturday and Sunday is where our opportunities are. And we had, as I mentioned, the shotgun start, the optional skins game, and then we had lunch with Babos. They catered it for us. So, and nobody won the $5,000 hole-in-one yet. We're still looking for that first one. Golf Expo, you might have seen some information out on this. It's going to be Wednesday, October 25th over at Stardust. We're going to do it outside. We've got some vendors. We've got some, hopefully some charter clubs have signed up for this to share their offerings through the community. We're going to have some putting contests, chipping contests. We're also going to promote the Best Tee initiative through the USGA. We'll have some food trucks and live music. There's no cost to this. I hope you can come out and spend an hour or two with us. It's from 4 to 7. Our group lessons scheduled through USchedule and our portal. These have still remained quite popular. Mike Williams and Paul Gruza does most of the lifting on teaching these clinics. They're limited to 7 students. They cost $10 a person, and they've been real active with this. Just wanted to touch on the new range ball dispensers. There's been some questions out there. Why did we do this, and how is it working, and so forth. So the big reason why we did this is the existing or the previous machines were 15 plus years old, and We were on the third company that owned the true maker of this machine, that built it. So we were running into problems with parts, some other issues. So that was the reason. And we were running into the breaking down. They look like the other one. They're just a little squattier. They hold about 1,000 balls less. But the good thing about that, it's easier on our staff to fill those machines. So we're happy about that. The big difference, go ahead, Terry, if you would. The big difference is the capability, not only the capability of what we have currently, but what we can do in the future. So right now we wanted to walk before we run. So we're getting it where it accepts dollar bills and range cards. The old machine had keys, if any of you had those. Problem with the keys is if you lost one, I couldn't replace it for you. It was just like cash. If you lost it, sorry, but you're out of whatever value was on it. Here, your name is tagged to that card. And if for some reason you lose it, what have you, you put it through the wash and it can't read, you bring it in, we find it, we can tell you exactly how much is on that, and we'll issue you a new one. There will be a slight charge because I got to replace the card, but it's a better system from that standpoint. Things that it'll be able to do in the future, if we choose to do so, we can take credit cards. Eventually, we'll get away from the card. It'll have an app that your card will reside on your phone on the app, and you present that to the machine, and it'll deduct, which in turn, down the road, you could add money that way if you choose to do so. We could have happy hour range ball prices. If we find out that Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, nobody's hitting balls, let's discount our range ball prices, and we can do that on the fly. So there's a lot of flexibility with this system. The other thing on our business end is I know what the liability is. I know what's outstanding as far as dollar amount too. So hopefully that helps. We had a little challenge with the programming. There were some other things that were a little bit more important with our IT department to take care of, and we finally got around to it, and it seems to be working pretty well. Brian in the front office at Golf Ops has converted. Today he just reached 825 cards as far as transfer from keys, and we've sold 398, which was about a 15% increase over last year at this time. Just a reminder to everybody, if you buy a card, it's $90 for $180 worth of balls. All right. Wanted to show this next slide. We showed this last year, but we hadn't started our Golf Ops call center yet. These are the numbers from last year that our call center. Reminder to everybody on this, we have 2 people per shift working either a 7 to noon or a noon to 5 shift, Monday through Friday. They're working Saturday and Sunday morning, 7 to noon. This is their call history from last year. 48,300 phone calls were answered during the season. And this really, really helps the starters. The longer we can keep the phones out of the starters' hands, and that sounds bad, it's not meant to, but that gives the caller a chance to get some information or book a tee time or change it, cancel, whatever. But this has been beneficial for our filling our tee sheets. We have 8 people on staff that work in the call center. Wanted to share this with you. It's been about, I think it's been about 10 years when we allowed Valley Vista High School to come out and play, the boys and girls team. They do it in the fall. They come out about 3:30 in the afternoon, August, September, first part of October. We had a divot party, and a divot party in our world is we have the players come out and they volunteer their time and they sand and seed divots. We did this for about 90 minutes. We had our PAs help them, show them how to do it. And they did it over at Pebblebrook because that's where they play and practice. So it was well attended, and they are very thankful to come out and play here in Sun City West. Also, this last 45 days, we had Alan Hansen. He's a non-resident, but he's pursuing a doctoral degree at Grand Canyon, needed some help with some beginner golfers. We reached out to our green team members, and he was able to test them on imagery on the putting accuracy by the novice golfer. And so we had about 25 people participate, and now he's on his way of writing the results. Told him we'd like to see a copy of that too. Green team, first swing. This is a kickoff for our green team instructional program. This starts on Saturday, November 11th. It'll be over at Echo Mesa this year. We'll have up to 75 participants. These are people that are returning to the game of golf or starting for the first time. Typically, most of them don't have any clubs, haven't had any instruction, and this is a great opportunity for us to get in front of them and get them involved with playing golf in Sun City West. As of yesterday, we had 65 signed up for this. So if you know of anybody that might be interested, they can email greenteam@suncitywest.com and hopefully sign up. New golf employee. If you were here last month, we shared in golf ops, we have 148 employees during peak season. Out of the 138 are part-time employees. We've been without a merchandiser buyer for the last 5 months, and we found John Smith, who happens to be a Sun City West resident and has been spending the last 3 years working down at the Wigwam. So we connected with John, and John will bring a lot of experience and expertise to this role. So we're excited to have him. And I always like to share this, especially this time of year when we're coming in and out of overseed. Cart paths are going to be, we really need to follow those, staying on the path as much as we can, using the 90-degree rule. 15 feet from the greens, cannot be between a bunker and a green. 15 feet for the medical flag holders, 30 feet or more for everyone else. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Pat. Any members for questions? Gary?
Yes. Pat?
Yes.
You know, those of us that were on the committee last year, back in, I believe it was July, worked on the range ball costs and mainly increasing them, the cost from $2 to $3 and on a small bucket. You did a lot of research for this committee, and I know we are a recommending body. We are not the decision-making body, but our recommendation was a strong recommendation that we do increase the range ball cost from $2 to $3 on the small, and on the large increase it also.
Correct.
The reason being was we were also to look at increasing revenues, and especially more for golfer revenues versus non-golfer revenues. Okay, so I was under the impression that that was passed, I guess, and when the new machines finally got put in, obviously in September, you know, I went to change my key, and Brian did a wonderful job and exchanged it accordingly. The very next day, I took my wife's key in to change it, and there was a whole new system. I found out that we did not increase the cost of range balls. We simply exchanged buckets for buckets, which goes against the recommendation of our committee. So I don't think that that was your doings, but it was somebody's, and I guess I would like to know why we're making the recommendations as strong as we did, but yet somebody else is changing everything that we did.
Right. So the person walking up to the machine without a card is paying a higher rate. It did go from $2 to $3. So that's where the increase is. As far as how it increased the value of the card, I believe there were other discussions in other committees that were brought forward. I don't know the ins and outs of that, other than the fact that, and maybe Lisa or Harry could respond to that, but I believe there were other committees involved in this, and I'll say the Budget and Finance, because I think they wanted to see certain numbers. We've got to cover $700,000. How are we going to do it? This is how one way we can do it, by increasing range prices. So I think there was some massaging of those numbers. Otherwise, I think somebody else is going to have to answer that question.
Possible, Harry, for us to get the answer? I mean, I would certainly like to know, because we spent some time on that, and all of a sudden,
Well,
it didn't
Budget and
happen.
Finance made a lot of changes, and there was a lot of changes that happened in April, May till the June meeting. And where all of that happened, I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay,
I'll find out on my end.
okay, thank you.
Are there any other, Mike?
Well, I spoke last month about the range ball situation, and I thought it was kind of silly forcing people to spend $3 for 30 balls when they're only going to hit 10 or 12 or 15 anyway. And it was said to me that people just leave their balls for the buddy or something like that. So the other day, my wife and I were at Stardust, and there were 8 golf carts in the parking lot. 5 of them had baskets with balls in them. So I don't think that's going to happen. The next thing is, and again, I did that last month. I don't want to reiterate it again, just making my statement.
Sure.
We're talking about, you just said that they want to raise revenue to offset costs and whatnot. You mentioned $700,000.
That was what was charged, I believe, for all the committees.
Well-
They looked at it in some form or fashion.
Whatever the case may be, they
Sure.
need to increase revenue. When I ran my pharmacies, one of the ways to increase revenue was cutting expenses. So you just hired somebody else now. So this question was asked of me, so I'm going to ask it of you.
Sure.
Years ago, there was a gentleman who ran Pebblebrook, I think his name was Pete, and there was somebody that ran Trail Ridge, I believe that was Paul. And now I think there are just PGA pros at all of the golf courses.
Right.
Would it not be less expensive to have not PGA pros everywhere? And perhaps there are residents that would be able to do this job for a lot less costs. I mean, one of the easiest ways to improve your bottom line is not always to charge higher prices, but to cut your expenses.
Sure. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's part of it, Michael. I've been here 12 years. When I first walked in the door, I was the second PGA golf pro on staff. There was one other hired prior to me. That was Mark Adcock. Mark ran 2 golf courses. He ran Grandview and Echo Mesa. I had a part-time manager at Pebble. I had a part-time manager at Desert Trails. I had 1 full-time non-PGA member running Deer Valley and Stardust. And I had a part-time at Trail Ridge. All of them were residents. All of them were not in a golf environment before this experience. And so what we found over the few years under my belt was I'm asking a part-time employee working 20 hours, 22 hours a week to run a 70-plus hour operation, and it can't be done. So we reorganized, and I was able to bring in full-time PGA golf pros at the same rate that these people were being paid. So I actually reduced the number of employees. So instead of having 5 managers, we're down to 3. But with that said, the evolution of all this was they needed help, because I'm now asking a 40, 45-hour employee to run a 70-an-hour-a-week operation. That still can't be done because they need somebody as a right-hand person. So we hired 3 full-time assistant managers, but on the other side, we reduced the number of starters. So everything we've done is we've looked at payroll, to your point, and either kept it in line or reduced it. This gentleman that was just hired, he's replacing a full-time existing employee already. We just went without one for about 6 months. So we try to treat this as if it's our money that we're spending, because that's the way you're going to succeed. There's a budget, and I think you'll find that we are very good about that. But we've been very fortunate to get talented people into these positions at a very reasonable cost, because they're either, this is their swan song, they're at the end of their career, they've got a wealth of information, experience, but they're just trying to finish it out. And so I look at it as a success, because now I've got professionals in a position that can make good decisions on a day-to-day basis. Okay, does that help? Okay.
Lisa?
Thank you, Harry. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Lisa.
Thank you. Great presentation. I just have a question regarding the ball machines. So at last month's meeting, you touched on a couple of things. One was the front of the machines being
Yes.
exposed, and you were talking about things you were looking at to maybe correct that.
Right.
Have you made any progress on that?
We have, and if I can, Terry, can you bring back one of the pictures of the range machines, just so that everybody can see it? There's a couple of unique features on this machine I didn't mention. And to Lisa's point, the previous machine was dollar bills and a key. We had the same problems with the key that we're having with this, which is direct sunlight. But we fabricated a cover over the key because there was a LED little display that had to be covered up. Here it's a touch pad. And so where we're running into problems right now is over at Trail Ridge, where early in the morning that sun peaks underneath the eave there and hits this. So Russ Boston and his crew have moved the ice machine and put this closer to the end of the counter. We're still seeing a little challenge there, but we've got some time since they're not open. So we'll look at that. Desert Trails, I'll tell you this, Desert Trails catches all the sun because it faces southwest. And we're going to end up putting that somewhere up on the patio, so that'll be covered. So we're dealing with it, and we're going to find some fabrication. I do want to mention that if you look at this picture, there's a handle there right above the Wittick, below the black box, and that slides up. A few years ago, we had a couple people break into our range machines. They took a crowbar and popped it, and we don't keep money in here, and after dark, we empty them every day. And so this is neat because we can slide that up and lock it, so it's self-contained. So that was the other selling feature for us. Hopefully we don't have to go through that, but so to your point, Lisa, yes, we still have a few challenges. We'll either fabricate something to fix that, or we'll move the machines in a manner that will adjust to the daylight.
Super. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, Lisa.
Excellent.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Oh,
I have one. Thanks, Pat. Pat, on these tournament schedules, what would be helpful for me is when they're concluded, and maybe every 6 months, it doesn't have to be, is to really know the participation by men and women. Because when you look at the schedule, it is heavily skewed to the men's side. Granted, there's a lot of two persons, and there's 46 opportunities for women alone, and I think it's like 146 for men. So getting a feel for how many in the two-person ones are actually women would be helpful to know how much participation we're getting.
Okay, absolutely. We do a P&L on each of these events, as well as a breakdown on what we do. And I can actually, if you'd like, I can give you, I believe I have last year's all male, female teams, things of that nature. I think we've got those all broken out. So absolutely. Off the top of my head, the Bye-Bye Bermuda, I want to say we had 26 women, 13 teams, and the remainder were men. So three flights of men, one flight of women, I believe is the way it shook out.
any other questions from the committee? From the audience, if you have a question, please come up to the microphone, write down your name and number. You're supposed to address the chair, but if this is questions towards Pat, you can just address Pat. And then state your name and number too.
Okay, my name is Mark Martin, number is 130408. And basically my question, I don't know if it's for Pat or for the committee, is, you know, it was just brought up about the revenue situation, stuff like that. And I brought this up last year, and I'll probably bring it up next October. I don't understand why we are changing our starting times based on a calendar and not based on when sunrise is. We should be, today, we should have been starting at 6:30. Sunrise today was 6:31. We could be starting at 6:30, 2 weeks into October, and we're pushed back 7 o'clock. We're down to only 3 courses right now. It's impossible to get an early tea time. I mean, we're giving up tea times in the morning, which most people want. 99% of the people probably want the earlier tea time. And we give them up based on a calendar, not based on what the actuality of sunrise and sunset.
I'm going to try to answer that, and then if Todd wants to jump in, so be it. So you'll find that our tea times change from month to month. And in that month, you're going to find some variances of sunrise and sunset. So early in the month, you're going to find that we're probably burning some daylight. When we get towards the end of October, that first tea time is going to be pretty much at daylight. So there's a 30-day window where these, because you're gaining losing or gaining a minute a day for sunrise and sunset. So sure, October 1st is not going to be, or it's going to be longer day than October 31st. But from an organizational and a scheduling standpoint, sure, we could probably get into weeks or months, but now we've got to make sure that the residents know that this week we're starting at 6:45, next week we're starting at 7, you know, so there's some challenges there, and that goes along with making T-sheets. So we've got it broken down 30 days at a time. If we need to go less than that, there could be some opportunity there, sure.
But the residents, we start at 6 o'clock in the summer, so I don't think a resident's going to care that we went to stayed at 6:30 when we were at 6:30 for 2-3 months. I don't think a resident's going to care that we didn't move it to 7 o'clock.
So the other component here is we've got to prep the golf course too.
Yeah, but if I play at 6 o'clock, I'm running into the workers, whether I start at 6 or 6:30, and I don't care about that. I'm plenty.
Yeah, but it's a challenge for us, because if that worker doesn't stay ahead of you, he doesn't get his job done, because right after you are more players, and he can't get out between the groups. So that's the key with the employees, is to get out there ahead of that first group. And so that means mowing, tee boxes, raking bunkers. Todd could go through the whole list, but if they get trapped getting behind you, they're not touching that golf course for the rest of the day. And that's the tough part. They've got to have that little buffer.
But they start in the nighttime, at night anyway, right? In the darkness anyway.
Some of their tasks, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 o'clock is our start time. That's the county. Let me get a microphone. Yes, we're starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's a county noise ordinance that we're not supposed to start before 5 o'clock. So,
Okay, so you're starting at 5 o'clock, whether we start at 6 or whether we start at 7:30.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't really change anything. If when we start at 6, you can get enough work done starting at 5, then what is the difference if we're starting at 6:30 or 7 o'clock?
okay. The other
Because
thing.
right now you're giving away, 12 tee times every day with only 3 courses open.
You know, the one challenge that I have is our staff levels. We don't have the number of people that we used to. You know, back in the day, I had a group that would go off the front, off the back. They'd mow greens, change cups, rake bunkers, mow tees, collars, approaches, fairways, and all that. And so sometimes we just have enough people to start on number 1 and try to stay ahead. So that's a real challenge for us if we're starting at 5 o'clock. And there's times that it's tough trying to stay ahead of the play. And so,
Well, especially at this time of year, could I ask what the staff of the closed courses are doing?
they're being used on some of the other courses.
Okay.
And
so-
right now, the courses that are closed right now for overseeding, they're on those courses and they're trying to get the golf courses ready. for the opening on
But not in the
Tuesday.
first few weeks of overseeding, right? They're not really,
They're doing a little bit of prep work. Yeah, and we did that this year. You know, the weather was so that we could get out there and do a little prep work and kind of get a jump start on overseeding on those courses that were closed, like at Grandview and Desert Trails.
okay.
Yes, sir.
If nobody else can ask another question, if nobody else has a question?
Does anybody else from the audience have a question? To the mic, give your name and number and sign in, please.
My name is Douglas Searcy, and my rec number is 128027. And I have a generalized question. I don't know if it's for Pat, or if it's for the board, or if there's actually a informational flyer or something out there. But as I play a lot of golf, I hear a lot of rumors, conspiracy theories, and a whole lot of plethora of things, as I'm sure you do as well, with regard to the lottery system. And I quite honestly don't really have a problem. I think in 5 years I've only been denied once or twice. But I am interested to know in the system how the golf lottery system actually works. Is this a computerized system that is selecting these tee times? Is there a human selection component in these? Is there a selection criteria? And, you know, is there that public information sheet that explains all that? And the reason why I'm asking is because several times, not only last year but this year, I hear things which I think are absurd. And I would, rather than be that guy that complains, I'd like to be the guy that has the answer so that I can explain it to my playing partner who is complaining to me. So whomever that is for, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Appreciate it. It is a software program. It's a component of our Totally software package, which is our point of sale inventory. When you go in and pay your membership dues, it's attached to your home and creates your employee or rec number. So it's one whole huge software program. The only person component to it is if you bring in a paper slip and didn't put it in through the computer, we will put it in for you. At 4 o'clock exactly, the computer runs the lottery. And Doug, I've got some information I can share with any and all of you. We've got it written up. At 4 o'clock it runs for the next week. So today at 4 o'clock, we're going to be running the lottery at Pebble Brook for next Thursday. What we do, because we see that there's a challenge there, especially this time of year, is my data entry staff, and some of you might have received calls from them saying, hey, you got bumped. Your request got denied because somebody got it. This is what I have available. What would you like? So we give everybody that went through the trouble of putting in a lottery request through their portal or through paper and pencil, first right to get a tee time because you went through those hurdles. After the bump list is called through, this time of year, it's usually about 12 to 15 pages. And I'll state this too. A foursome doesn't have more of a preference than a 6 groups or 8 groups. 2 groups, there's no weight on this. I'll say that Grandview has a weighted system where if you got a Saturday tee time last Saturday and it was in your parameters, there's a great chance you're not getting that next Saturday tee time. We don't weight it. It's kind of like the Powerball. It's supposedly not weighted either, and I'm still waiting for my call on that one too. But you're going to win some lotteries and you're going to lose some. And my litmus test is if you lose 3, that's too many. If you lose 3 lottery requests in a row, that's too many. But I will also preface that by saying you're probably putting in too close of a narrow of a window. If you're putting in, book me at Deer Valley and Pebble Brook between 7 and 8, you're not going to get it. If you do, you're very, very fortunate. You need to put something of a wider window, as many courses as you can, and there's a time preference and there's a course preference. So if you want to play Deer Valley, put Deer Valley and give the whole day. If you want to play between 8 and 10, put 8 and 10 and list as many golf courses as you can. So there's a preference there. Singles are held. I will say this, singles are held. If you sign up by yourself, we will not, the computer will not issue a single tee time first, because that takes up a foursome spot. It'll hold it and say, you want 8 o'clock? Let's wait till a twosome or a threesome books, and then we'll put you with that twosome or threesome. So if there's any weighted, that would be the only cause or the only result. It's a good system, it really is. Right now, I think most of you know that we're going through a database problem where now you're having, instead of rec numbers, you're having to put in last names. And that's something they're trying to fix. It's not a permanent situation. We're hoping that ends here pretty quick. And you can book up to 40 players on the lottery. But the challenge is you're looking for 10 tee times, and this time of year it's just not going to happen. And that's one of the reasons why we don't do group play this time of year, is because if we did, most of those tee times would be taken, and we feel that's not fair. So, does that answer your question?
One quick little smidgen of a follow-up, if that's allowed. So is there a criteria in the system for selection as far as earlier you input
No,
requests?
no. So let me answer that. I'll answer that because there might not be clarity on that. Mr. Searcy asked if he put it in further in advance, which you can do up to 20 days in advance, does that weight it better for you to get your tee time? And the answer is no. So that's a convenience factor. So if you're going to go out of town or you're going to be busy, you can put lottery requests up for 20 days in advance. You should be getting confirmations that you've put those in there. And if you're ever in doubt, look at your itineraries, because that's the absolute gospel. But it will draw it that night, 7 days in advance, and it doesn't help you anymore. It's a convenience. Okay?
Just one other item to that is the aspect is we get a lot of questions because there's non-resident play. The residents start at 20 days ahead of time. Your tee time is drawn 7 days ahead of tee time. And you have up until 3 days, if there's any tee time openings as a resident, to get it. It's 3 days out before it opens to the outside people.
That's actually four.
Actually 4?
4 days for public. Okay. So you got a 3 day head start.
So that's just, as a sidelight, so the resident still has priority up until 4 days out.
So if I can piggyback on that, there are some rumors out there that, okay, how did this public player get out on 10 o'clock? Well, there's one of two ways that could happen. Either one of our residents is sharing their rec number and allowing somebody to book on their lottery system using that rec number, or it was a last minute cancellation and the tee sheet had an open tee time and somebody just happened to call and they booked it. So it happens. It happens.
Only because you bring that up, I would like to ask, so are there legitimate times when we have had members who have given their rec card number to somebody else to book play?
We've seen tendencies of that, so we address it when we see that.
Okay, so there is a policy in place when we recognize that, and then that is addressed with that member who is allowing that to happen.
Boy, I don't know if there's a policy in place, but we try to monitor it through our golf
Gotcha.
ops.
The only reason I bring that up is because, and I only know, it sounds like it's going on more than what I had heard of one incident where 8 players came in from outside of our neighborhood, our West community, and had a tee time. And the one member or the one golfer that was not there for that play that day was our local resident who was sick, and there was already another person to fill in for them. So
Right.
8 players from a neighboring neighborhood. So if that's going on,
Yeah,
I would think
well,
that's something the board would strongly look at.
yeah, and it typically shows itself where we have a resident who doesn't play golf, and they've got neighbors somewhere around the West Valley, and they said, yeah, we'll use Aunt Linda's number. And then they go in and we find that Aunt Linda's not playing. But we have to see this through a couple times and say, yeah, that's the third time that Aunt Linda hasn't played this week. Why don't we reach out and see what's going on there? So it does. I mean, we'd all be naive to think it doesn't happen, but it's not rampant by any means.
Okay.
Pat, just a clarification. If a group of 40 sign up for the lottery, can they put a public player in there? So they can take up resident space that way?
It would be a member guest, but that 40-player lottery request has to have 10 residents listed, one for each group. So theoretically, you could have a group of 40 going through the lottery, 10 residents. They'd be the captain on each group with 3 guests in each of those foursomes. Yes.
You could have, out of 40, you could have 30 from the outside.
Correct.
That are getting tee times before.
Correct.
Okay.
Don't sit down, Pat. Mark Martin, 130408. He just brought up something, now I have to ask a different question.
Sure.
Do we have anything in place, I don't think there is, for no-shows? Is there?
No.
Okay, I played at Pebblebrook on last Sunday. There was a no-show to group before me, and there was no show to group after me.
Correct.
And I'm not talking to cancellation. I have no problem with cancellations. But just flat out no-shows, something needs to be done to stop that. Because as you say, what would stop me from putting myself and my wife in, who doesn't golf, just to get into the lottery and then her just not showing up?
Right.
So there has to be, you have to really put some kind of penalty for no-shows.
Right.
I mean, all of us golfed wherever we all came from, and you always called in to cancel. I don't think you ever just didn't show up to a golf course.
Yeah.
And here it's okay because, well, everybody does it. So I think that's a problem.
So good question, but there's 2 answers to that. And one of them is the fact that at one time years ago, they tried to do this and they had trouble because there's so many ways to cancel a tee time. So case in point, you're playing tomorrow at Pebblebrook, but today you played up at Deer Valley and you said, hey, starter, I'd like to cancel a tee time. For whatever reason, got busy, whatever, he didn't do it. You come in and say, hey, this guy's not going to show. Well, we're going to have to penalize you. Well, I canceled up at Deer Valley. Well, who'd you talk to? All this stuff. There's too many variables. If we had a cancellation number or one central location where you had to cancel, we could monitor that. But what we found is, I think I told the guy up at at Deer Valley to cancel. We just have too many ways to modify a tee sheet, and we can't track it.
Well, it doesn't have to be the first time. They could get 2 or 3 times.
Sure.
And if 3 times they talk to someone somewhere else, like you said to him about, you have your doubts about,
Right.
how they're doing it, then it would be possible. But I mean, again, same thing. Sunday morning, prime tee time, place is packed, and two groups are not there.
Right. And the other one is the age of our community. We get people that wake up in the morning and says, I can't make it.
Then call and cancel.
There you go.
Call and cancel.
There you go.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to Todd, Environmental Services.
All right, good afternoon. Just a couple things before we get started. Today I'm just going to give you an overseeing update and then, of course, the Grandview update on the project. And then we'll talk a little bit about the USGA site visit report, which was handed out at last month's meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to go through that, and if you have any questions or comments on that report. Before I get to that, I have some action items that are left over from last month's meeting. The first one was green teas, and this is, Donna had recommended that we look at our green teas and make sure that all of them are placed in flat areas. And I did talk to the superintendents the next day. We had a meeting to go over some of these things. Hopefully after we get done with the overseeding and open the golf courses, all those areas will be in a flat area, okay? Bunker maintenance was another action item that we had. Was some concern about maybe the frequency of raking our bunkers and maybe a little bit hard. So I did talk to the staff. I told them to check the bunker rakes and make sure the tines on the back of the bunker rakes, which loosens up the sand, to make sure that those weren't worn out and to replace those right away. And then if we were short on staff, to really concentrate on greenside bunkers first. Then if we have time and we have the staff, we could go ahead and take care of the fairway bunkers. And then wintertime maintenance, which is going to increase, with our staff levels, it's hard to get everything done. But in the wintertime, we're not mowing rough, we're not trimming, edging, and those kind of things. So we will have enough staff on board that we can rake all the bunkers, at least the greenside bunkers, at least 6 times a week. So you'll see an improvement there. The other one was from Patty, was signage posted on 1 and 10 tees that would indicate where drivers or carts should drive, whether it's in the fairways or in the roughs. And so those have been ordered, and I hope to have those in place before opening after overseeding. So right now, after we open after overseeding, it looks like we're going to be able to drive out to the ball, 90-degree rule, but we're going to want you to drive in the rough areas for right now until the rough goes dormant, and then we'll flip-flop that where we want you to drive in the fairways. So there will be signs throughout the year indicating where to drive, fairways or rough. Okay. I might need you to advance that, Terry. All right, thank you. All right, on to overseeding. As you know, but we have the 4 golf courses closed right now: Trail Ridge, Desert Trails, Grandview, and Echo Mesa for overseeding. It's underway. Everything's starting to look pretty good out there. We've had some weather concerns with the heat, and then we had a few days where we had to hold off on seeding the greens because of the wind. So just a little bit of delay on the greens, but everything's looking real good right now. Everything's scheduled to open on Tuesday, October 24th. And again, I'm not anticipating any cart path restrictions on opening day, unless we get some weather event that moves in, we get a lot of heavy rain and it's just too wet to drive out in the fairways, but we would have that any time of the year. So everything's looking pretty good. Okay. All right, just a couple pictures just to show you when we overseed the first golf courses with the warmth, it really works to our advantage. We can get germination in 3 days when it's this warm. You can see that one picture on the left. This is number 1 fairway over Grandview. That was taken on Wednesday the 4th, and 2 days later, picture on the right, seed pop, greening up. And then the next picture, Terry. And then that's the following Monday. That was the first cut on the fairway. So you can see things happen pretty quick with the overseeding, and everything looks good. We've had a few issues with the fungus out there, especially at Desert Trails, where we had to do some reseeding, mostly on fairways and green banks. I think tees and greens are in really good shape. But we've treated that fungus a couple times. So when we open, you might see some spots out there, just kind of a discoloration on those areas, but we've seeded them and we've treated them with a fungicide, so we should be fine for opening day. All right, and then the Grandview project. Everything's completed over there. We completed the irrigation back on August 9th on the golf course, so we've been watering the entire golf course since then. And that was completed about 10 days ahead of schedule. And then just recently, the desert landscape installation, we completed that on the 15th of September. They did complete that on schedule. And then we did some cart path repair work. That was the slurry seal and the cart path repair, and that was completed on the 26th. So we're still out there working on on the desert areas, we're raking them. I know we have had some plants that have died because of the heat this summer, so we're replacing those. So we're going to continue to work on those desert areas all the way through open and all winter if we have to. We've got a lot of nutsedge that has come back around. It's a grass. It's hard to get rid of, but we have some of that coming back. And then some of the Bermuda grass around the plants has kind of made a comeback. So we've been spraying those areas, and we're going to continue to stay on that until we get it. So. All right, just a couple pictures. That's 14T. You can see that used to be one whole tee there, turf tee, and then we converted that over into some desert or some island tees. And then the picture on the right, you can see those are walk-on areas that we've installed on all the holes where you walk up through the desert to the tee boxes. And since this picture, we've actually added a stabilizer product, which compacts the rock a little bit, and then we put a different color of rock down there, Table Mesa Brown, to kind of highlight those areas, and then put a border of riprap on that. So when you get out of the cart, you'll see exactly where to walk, and it's not going to be soft. So I think it's going to look good. So. All right. And then please keep carts out of the desert areas. We're going to have those signs posted at 1 and 10T and then throughout the entire golf course. So we're asking you right now to please stay out of the desert areas. The picture here was behind number 2 green over there at Grandview. You can see where somebody was out driving around and they decided to go through drove over a couple plants, and then where it was wet by the tree, kind of rutted that up a little bit. And then picture up there on the top, yeah, you can see where they actually ran over a plant. So we're asking you to please stay out of the desert areas. And then this is kind of in Pat's area, but free drop from all desert areas, nearest point of relief, no closer to the hole. The desert areas are soft right now. We put about 2 inches of decomposed granite. It's compacted a little bit, but you know, if we would have had some rain this summer, they really would have helped us out a little bit with the compaction, but we just didn't get those rains. So it won't be long before they're firmed up. I know I was over there this morning walking through some of those areas, and it has firmed up just in the last couple of months. So get some rain this winter, we'll be in good shape. But when it's all said and done, those areas will be similar to what you have over at Trail Ridge and Deer Valley, those areas. So it's going to be hard packed. It's going to be a playable surface. So. All right, and then on to the USGA report.
Do you want to do that or that?
That's up to you, Harry, if you want to go ahead and knock that out now, or you want to.
Let's wait and hold that to new business.
Okay, very good.
Well, are there any questions for Todd? And the environmental thing will be discussed under new business. Tom? Or Mike?
Yeah, excuse me, last week or 10 days ago, we had a little impromptu ride around of Echo Mesa. And on the first hole, we discussed kind of off the cuff or perhaps eliminating a bunker here or there on various golf courses. And for example, on hole number 1 at Echo Mesa on the right side, if we just make that a grass bunker versus a actual sand bunker, will that be continued to be discussed, or is that really unrealistic?
No, that's something we can talk about. You know, we closed the golf course, Echo Mesa, we closed that in 2025 for the irrigation and turf reduction project. So those are all things that we can look at. That would be the perfect time to get in there and do those things. If we decide that we want to remove some bunkers, a sand bunker, and convert that over into grass bunker, those are things that we can do at that time, absolutely.
Anybody else on the committee? Anybody from the audience? Seeing none, we will move on to 3.03, our financial review by Terry West.
Today I'm going to go over the August year-to-date financials. So this will be July and August together. First is the actual versus budget for revenue. We ended the 2 months about $38,000 behind budget. Most of this is due to probably the higher than normal temperatures, and then just the golf course Grandview being closed, a few extra. ancillary revenue, the range and carts expenses, or revenue is down. Next slide shows our golf rounds. We were only off rounds to budget 520 rounds, and our golf fees per round were down 25 cents per round than what we had budgeted. Looking at the year-to-date expenses versus budget, overall, we ended the month $8,000 ahead of budget, favorable to budget. Some of the notables on that, $59,000 in wages, benefits, and taxes. We're still down. Todd's team is down in employees. And then the utilities with the heat, we were over budget by $53,000. Going on to income from operations, actual versus budget. So for the complete 2 months, we are behind budget $30,000, which is just a little over 2% behind our total budget. Now, if we look at actual versus last year's revenue, we are behind last year by $14,000. Most of that coming from our ancillary revenue of golf balls, range balls, and then cart rentals, with the range ball machines being down a little bit, and the heat, I think people weren't out hitting golf balls as much. So our next, we were actually 1,256 rounds less than previous year, but our golf rounds fees per round were higher than last year for the average. Some of the notables for actual versus prior year is that our golf card revenue is up. Annual card is up 13,000, and they're kind of, looks like it's golf card revenue is going to be strong this year. Some of the other notables for revenue versus this year versus last year, resident golf fees were down 9,000, guest fees up 13, and outside play down 19. But as you know, last year in January, we started actually keeping the outside play with the tax implication. So I think those will even out a little more, because last year we rang up a lot of people as guests that were under outside play. Some of the expense notables for actual versus prior year that you'll see on the next slide is our wages are up, and also health insurance, and then of course the utilities versus last year. So looking at the total summary of expenses, our difference is $135,000 in total operating expenses, unfavorable to last year, which is about 7%. Some of the landscape maintenance, part of that has to do with timing of when the seed and fertilizer come in and when it gets expensed. So that should even out a little better in the coming months. So overall, actual versus prior year, through the end of August, we are 149,000 behind last year, but only 30,000 behind in budget, so we're a little closer.
Are there any questions for Terry from the committee? Lisa?
Thank you, Harry. Hi, Terry.
Hi, Lisa.
Great job, thank you. The only question that I have is in either page 4 or page 11, it can be found in regards to where it says taxes, insurance, and credit card fees. We have 7,000. Do we know how much of that negative is related to the credit card fees?
Part of it is related to credit card fees, higher,
Right.
more usage, and also part of that is we did do a switch from the Shift 4 credit card processor to Converge credit card processor, and we did have to buy credit card machines for that switchover. So there was a machine, well, 2 machines for each of the pro shops. So that expenses in there also. And those were around $700 each. So,
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
okay.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, are there any questions from the audience? Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
We're moving on into new business. First item is USGA site visit report. Todd.
All right, thanks, Harry. Just before we get into it a little bit, I've got just an overview of some of the key areas in the report. The first one was course improvement projects. Brian Whitlark, he's the agronomist for the USGA, and he came out, I think it was early first week of August, to tour our golf courses. We did take him over to Grandview. I think Brian is very supportive of anything that we do as far as water conservation projects. So he was very excited about the turf reduction over at Grandview. He estimated that we're going to save as much as 150 acre feet a year with the removal of 45 acres of desert over there. So that's huge. And, you know, we have that mandate from the state, and then we have a new management plan in 2025. And so we're going to have to get our water usage down before that date. So that's going to be a big help in going into that. And then we have Echo Mesa, which is scheduled for 2025. So those 2 courses with the water reduction, I think we're going to be in good shape as far as meeting the needs of the ADWR state water mandates. So he did recommend when we close Echo Mesa in year 2025 that we look at converting the 6 par 4 fairways in Greenbanks over to one of the newer varieties of Bermuda grass, like Tahoma or Tiff Tuff. This would further increase our water savings while improving the playability of our golf courses. So that's something we're going to look at. Now, we didn't budget for that in the capital project for Echo Mesa in 2025, but I'm working with our general manager and CFO to see if there's a way that we can somehow get that in there, because that would be the perfect time to do that project. You're closed for irrigation and you're removing turf, and so it just makes sense. And so that would be kind of our starting point to do Echo Mesa, and then if it looks like that's going to work out for us, and it in fact is going to save water and where you wouldn't have to overseed it, and it's still a very playable surface, then we would just continue that program on. We'd go to Stardust, and we'd go to Pebblebrook, and then on from there. So, transition was another area that we looked at. You know, that's important to us every year in the springtime, and that's getting rid of the winter ryegrass and converting over to summer Bermuda grass. We spent a little bit of time looking at our overseeded areas at that time. He felt our transition from winter ryegrass to summer Bermuda grass was really pretty good, considering below average temperatures in the month of June, high temperatures or record heat in July, and then one of the driest monsoons on record. So he thought we were really ahead of other golf courses that he's visited in the area. He did recommend making some minor changes to our chemical removal plan. That's where we go out in the spring and we spray a selective herbicide that kind of slows down the growth of the ryegrass and then encourages the Bermuda grass a little bit. So he did have some recommendations to the timing and also to the rates that we spray. So we're going to be looking at that next spring as well. Labor was another issue that we really touched on. He said that's really affecting everybody in every golf course that he's been to. He said that is one of their main problems, is not having enough employees on the golf course. Our staff levels have improved slightly since his visit, but I think that has a lot to do with the cooler weather and also some of the efforts, our recruiting efforts that our HR department has put together. So the combination of that really helps. But, you know, it's the summertime when we really need all these employees, but unfortunately it's hot out, and if they can make similar money going over to a fast food or box store, they're going to do that. And I don't blame them, especially after this summer, 119, 120 degrees out there with a shovel, you know, and I can be inside, you know, in a box store under the air conditioner. So I don't blame him for that. He did have some concern that our staffing levels weren't up enough to take care of the desert landscape over at Grandview. That was one of his main concerns. So we're going to be looking at that. There's golf courses out there in the valley that have desert landscape and they have turf conditions, and usually they outsource all the desert landscape. So the guys that are on the crew, they don't even step foot in the desert. They just take care of the grass areas. And so with us, we have Trail Ridge and Deer Valley and then now Grandview on board. Our crew, which is small to begin with, now we're having to take care of the grass, mow it, fertilize it, all the irrigation, and then also keep up with the desert landscape, the trimming, the weeding, and all that. So it's very difficult to do that. So I am going to present a plan to our general manager and CFO about maybe outsourcing desert landscape at Grandview. And I don't think this has to be a year-round program. I'm thinking about 6 months, maybe from May through September, something like that. That's our heavy growth months. In the wintertime, I think we can manage that with our own staff. Things aren't growing as much. So I am going to put a plan together and hopefully we can get that through. The other one was an equipment replacement program. We're on a very solid program every year to get new equipment in here. And Brian commented that our replacement program was very good in comparison to some of the other places that he's visited. And he recommended continuing that annual replacement program. He also mentioned in his report that a lot of times when you're not replacing equipment, it's broken down and then it sits in the shop and it's not out mowing where it should be. And then your mechanic is spending all that time and money working on a piece of equipment that's 10, 15 years old. And so with our program, we're able to get new equipment in, and then our mechanics can focus on a preventative maintenance program rather than repairing. So that's very important right now. So I would like to note that our equipment, all of our equipment that we have is listed on the reserve study, and we review that every year and we go through there. So just because it's on the reserve study doesn't mean that we're going to get all that equipment. So if there's a greens mower or fairway mower that's listed on that list, we'll evaluate it, and if it looks like we can get a couple more years out of it, we'll push it a year or two out. So just a couple other things that were couple of other areas on the report, removing or reducing mounds at Echo Mesa, a lot of the hills out there. He did recommend doing that, and we would do that during the renovation project in 2025. It's very hard to water those areas and also mow those areas, and part of playability too. It's not the easiest. He suggested to continue to renovate our shorelines with some form of hardscape, whether this be riprap or a block wall. This will help reduce erosion and also save water. Reduce maintenance during the summer months when staff levels tend to be at the lowest. And that would be like bunker maintenance and changing of cups. So maybe you're not raking bunkers as often. We talked about that earlier. And maybe, instead of changing cups 7 days a week, maybe we're just going to do 6 days a week. So that's something we could look at if our staff levels continue to be where they're at. Recommended to continue the 2-course closure program during the summer months. This allows the course to rest. Staff can work on improvement projects, and staff can be used at other golf courses that are open, and we did a little bit of that this year. So if we were short-staffed on a golf course that was open, we'd bring some of those guys over from Desert Trails and Grandview, at least to mow greens and change cups and rake bunkers, and then they'd go back to their home course after that. So anyway, that's some of the key areas in the report. So Harry, I don't know if you want to open it up to.
Yeah, I'll just one comment. We went through Echo Mesa with Todd last week and did a review of what's going on and brought up the issue of the new grass, which they'll look at in 2025. But the one thing I found out, I thought, boy, that would be great if we don't have to do any reseeding and shut the courses down. Well, we still got to go through a shutdown because that is only for fairways. It's not for tee boxes and greens, so you'd still have to shut down for the tee boxes and greens. That's something I found out.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll open it up for questions from the committee. No questions from the committee? Tom.
On the Bermuda, the new Bermuda that doesn't require the overseating, besides with the points that Harry brought up there, I'm sure it's still gonna go dormant. It's still gonna turn brown. You think you had a hard time convincing residents at Grandview about going to the desert area? You're gonna convince the people at Echo Mesa they're gonna have brown grass all winter?
Yeah, I know some of
And it doesn't grow. So now you're gonna have divots that don't fill in. I think, did I hear that Sun City is putting this into one of their courses?
Yeah, Sun City has that, and there's some other golf courses in the valley. I believe it might be McCormick Ranch, I believe. But there's a handful of golf courses that are experimenting with this grass. And I'd like to look at it, especially after the first of the year, after it's gone dormant, after you've put tire tracks out there from the carts. And what do you do with the divots? You know, that's those are all things we need to look at before we pull the trigger and say, hey, this is what we're going to use. But I know a lot of them that have that have been painting it just to give it some color. They said it doesn't go completely dormant, so it's going to have a little bit of green to it, but they do still go ahead and paint those areas that aren't overseeded. So, but yeah, we got a ways to go. I think we really need to take a hard look at that and then go to those golf courses and see the ones that have that.
Originally, I'm from the St. Louis area, and we used to have Bermuda, and almost all courses have now gone to zoysia, but it cannot be overseeded.
Right.
And then the issue runs into when we get into the winters, because they're harsh enough, they can't even allow carts to drive on the fairways because it just eliminates the grass and you end up with dirt.
Yeah, and that's my biggest fear, you know, the amount of play that we put on our golf course is how are they going to hold up, you know? And when you overseed, at least you have growing grass that's going to recover from those areas. But divots, you know, that's the other thing. I just don't understand how that's going to work. So we got a long ways to go before we make that decision that that's going to work for us. So, but I think it's worth looking at. I really do, because of the water savings for sure. And then if you're not overseeding, there's labor and seed and fertilizer that's involved in that. And there's a big savings there too. So I really think we need to take a look at it, but we got a ways to go.
Any other questions from the committee? Questions from the audience? Thank you, Todd.
Okay, thank you,
Harry. Next item under new business is golf policy reviews. I asked you guys to take a look if you had any issues with golf policies at our last meeting. I haven't received any comments, so does anybody have any comments today about policy review or any policies that need changing?
The only thing I had was on the the number of carts that are allowed on the course at one time. We've got some carts now that are two-wheeled, some are three-wheeled, and some are four-wheeled. Do we have a clarification on that, Pat? And is that something where we can share that with everyone? Okay.
I'll be more than happy to send it along, but it should be posted at every golf course. And what I tried to do is put every combination permutation that you could put together and just kind of close any gaps there. But the purpose is to relieve the turf of as much weight as possible. And when you start having electric carts that weigh 1,200 pounds, gas carts that are at 900 pounds, and you start multiplying that by double, you start running into some challenges for Todd. And Todd won't share, well, I don't say he won't share this, but he's reluctant to share how many hundreds of yards of Bermuda he replaces every summer. And some of it, not all of it, is a direct result to cart traffic. So, yes, we encourage people to get the single rider. I know Michael Berg's got one here. If you need it, if you have some challenges health-wise, or if you just, for whatever reason, want to ride by yourself, a single rider cart will never be left out of a group. Okay?
Any other comments about policies? Pardon? Use the power golf vehicles? Yeah. No, just a clarification. That'd probably be a good idea. Okay, where are they at? Okay, G, what we'll do is we'll go through each policy. I'll say the policy name, and if everybody's in agreement, we'll move it forward at the for the workshop tomorrow. That we recommend no changes. The first one is refunding prepaid golf cards, GO1. Move it forward as is. Okay. GO2, high school and college golf teams. Any changes? Move it forward. GO3, golf course maintenance. Move it forward. GO4, use of powered golf vehicles. Any changes? Move it forward. GO6, administration of golf tee time reservation system. No changes? Move it forward. GO7, golf course liability. Any changes? Move it forward. GO8, violation of green fee rules. Any changes? We'll move it forward. G10, non-resident play for golf, public players, card holders, and outside play. No changes? We'll move it forward. G12, golf tournaments or special events. No changes? We'll move it forward. That's the golf policies. So I will take care of that tomorrow at the governing board workshop. Next item under new business is proposed capital budget, October revisions between Pat and Todd.
I just got two sections of the capital budget for golf maintenance. One is the irrigation and turf reduction project scheduled for Echo Mesa in year 2025. And then the capital budget, the equipment replacement program. This year, we're looking at 20 units in total for the golf courses. And those are like greens mowers, fairway mowers, rough, greens and fairway aerators, bank mowers, greens rollers, a sprayer, and a turf vacuum. And then on our vehicles, which are light and heavy duty utility carts, we have 14 of those scheduled for replacement this year. One dump truck, which is what we call shared equipment between all 7 golf courses, and then one actual pickup truck for transportation is also on that list. And like I mentioned in the reserve study, we go through these and we determine really if we need them or not, and if we don't, then we'll push them out a year or two. So the Echo Mesa Irrigation Turf Reduction Project, we are currently in phase 1. We had a budget of $205,000 for that, and that includes the design work, both irrigation and turf removal, staking, GPS mapping, and any engineering cost that may be involved in that. And so phase 2, which falls into 2025 or 24-25 budget, includes the project. So we have a proposed budget of $5 million. We had an increase of $700,000 just based on the price per acre from Grandview. So everything is starting to go up a little bit. In fact, the irrigation portion, just learned today that there's a 12% increase on all of that from Grandview. So that's heads, valves, and the piping. Rock material has also increased, which we're going to need over there at Echo Mesa. And we're gonna have to use a little bit larger rock over there in some of those areas because of the hills and stuff like that. So that increases the cost. We also have to do a connection to the transfer line over there at Echo Mesa that feeds all the other golf courses. And then permits, the county permits, those have also increased from Grandview. So we went from about $43,000 to $44,000 per acre over at Grandview. Now we're reaching $50,000 per acre with this project. And we kind of knew that things, prices are gonna continue to increase. So as we go through. So as far as capital, that's it, the equipment replacement program and then the big project over at Echo Mesa.
Thank you, Todd. Any questions from the committee? Questions from the audience? Anybody want to write a check? I can't get anybody to write a check, Todd. Pat?
Yes, I just want to clarify something in my capital for next year. I've got 10,000 earmarked for each facility to replace our existing patio furniture. There needs to be a correction on this. I put Stardust down kind of as a placeholder, but we had new furniture bought this last year. But I will still have the same amount because for those of you that will remember this, that we're putting a front patio on desert trails. So I'll have to have some patio furniture for that and then replace the back patio furniture. So the furniture that we have on our patios right now, the projected longevity of that was 5 years. We're in year 8, so it's worked out pretty well. We're seeing some breakage of that. We want to have as nice a furniture as we can without it walking away, right? So we battle that, and I'm comfortable that $10,000 for 40 spots, tables, and chairs is a pretty good number. Okay? So Desert Trails will be added twice. Stardust will be off the list.
Any questions for Pat from the committee? Any from the audience? Okay, thank you, Pat. Next item on the agenda is the working group update. Donna.
So a few weeks ago, Pat, Mike, and I got together. We were trying to address the situation of how to identify golfers that are not following the rules as far as driving up on the greens and parking their carts in the wrong place. So it has seemed to have snowballed quite a bit, and we hadn't even discussed it with the committee yet. So Pat has a presentation he can go over, and then we can discuss it further.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Donna. Yeah, I want to thank Michael and Donna for spending some time with me to discuss this. I'll take full credit to this. I'm kind of spearheading this for a couple reasons, and I wanted everybody's input, and Harry put this working group together, so I appreciate their effort. There's two components to this. There's a safety component, and then there's a enforcing of rules component. With 326,000 rounds of golf last year, we have carts that break down. We have carts that show up. We don't know who the owner is, and we don't. So if a cart breaks down on the golf course, we don't know whose it is until an owner comes out and identifies it. So if we see one on the side of the road, we don't know whose it is. Is it stolen? Is it abandoned? What's the deal? And then the other part is the enforcement of rules. So my PAs, my player assistants are kind of, their hands are kind of tied a little bit because there's a certain anonymity to our golfers while they're out there. We know the tee time, but for those of you that play quite regularly, that tee time might switch with players. And the PA might see somebody driving too close, pick the situation that you want to pick. It's really tough to identify that person unless they fess up. And I really don't feel comfortable having my part-time minimum wage employee go up and confront somebody when they don't have the correct information. So I think we could do a lot better job of policing carts near greens, carts playing late in the evening, because there's rumors out there that, oh man, at 5:30, it's a circus out there. Well, we do have some play, but a large percentage of them are unlimited card holders. And so these are things that came to, in my world, come up from my staff. How can we be better at this? And so Terry, I think the next slide. These are things that we know. How many golfers play golf that are residents? Well, we know it's 7,600 plus, because every time you check in, what do? You show your card. So we know how many rounds everybody plays. We have 28,000 residents, and we know that there's a large percentage of our residents that don't play golf still have cards. So we don't know what that number is. I have no idea. I think it's somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000. I might be low on that. All right. So here's the downside of a cart. We go out, we tow it out, we don't know whose it is. Was there somebody driving that cart? Did somebody steal it and push it in there? So how did we do it in the past? Well, at one time we had it in with the Maricopa Sheriff's Department, and they would run plates. They don't do that for us. The other component is this. Okay, I've got a resident taking a picture, obviously love golf, doesn't want the course to be abused. I don't know who these gentlemen are. So we pass this around. Anybody identify this? Don't have any idea. But if my PA, and this was a resident from their backyard, but if a PA could go up there and have an interaction and say, oh, so you're not going to tell me your name or rec number? Let me go take a picture of your license plate. And now we can see who you are. So if you could go to the next slide, Terry. So here are the things that we talked about. Not saying we're doing this, I'm just saying that for us to be more efficient at what we do, this would help us. And some people are saying, well, this is the first step in getting trail fees. That's not the intent. If that's something 10 years from now, 5 years we want to talk about, so be it. But our intent is safety and information. So how would we implement the collection process? We could capture that information when you pay your dues, when you pay your annual card, if you do that. What if the resident doesn't want to participate? Well, one way you can do it is hit it where it hurts, right? So you have them pay a fee until they do. Doesn't have to be a big fee. But now the flip side to this, the challenge I have, is how do I manage that? Do I have somebody sit on the first tee? Do we have a list? Then we create this list. Who has access to that information? Well, I don't think it's important that everybody has access, but some key people would be good. How is this information? Again, updated. Membership department, make it easy for the community. What about carts from the outside? Well, we try to get them involved too. We either charge them until they get into our database. We'd use existing license plate. This was a big topic. Do we put a sticker on there? Well, what if they sell that cart? So we thought that the license plate would be the most reasonable way to do this. How do we handle tenants that are just here for 3 months out of the year? Well, if they're renting a place and it comes with a cart, the owner of the property would need to register. And then, of course, there would be a grace period. We wouldn't just drop the hammer and start tomorrow. We'd inform everybody and say, hey, this is what we'd like to do, and this is why. But for us in golf ops, to protect our golf courses, to be able to address the problems that surface every once in a while, we need some help in this area. So moving forward, our goal is to protect both the resident and the organization. You know, I worked at a private facility. We had 54 holes. We had private carts. And the trail fee back in 1998 was $500 a year. And they had to supply an insurance policy. They had to have their cart inspected once a year, because what they were trying to protect was that litigious problem that's going to show itself eventually when a cart, a personal cart, does damage, hurts somebody on the rec center property, and that person that gets hurt is going to look for two people to come after: the person's cart, the owner of that cart, and then the rec center, because it happened on their property. So we've been very fortunate over the last 40 plus years, but I just feel that we're a little bit exposed here, and it's something that we just need to start to talk about. Doesn't need to happen this year, doesn't need to happen tomorrow. It just needs to be a conversation. So Harry, that's what I have. And thanks again to Donna and Michael for this.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions. The first question that I've got is, has anybody talked to our attorney yet?
No, we have not. We wanted to.
Because one issue that I see is policy GO4, use of vehicles, where they talk about trail fees and things like that, which, you know, could it be the definition of a trail fee, which is specifically outlined by GO4. So I think we need a legal opinion.
Sure.
That we're not in violation, because then if we are, we got to go through the process of changing a policy.
What is that, would you mind reading that, what that policy says in correlation or direct relation to this?
Neither the golf operations manager nor the general manager shall set any fees for the use of private golf carts or vehicles on the association golf courses without the prior approval of the governing board of directors.
Very good. So our thought was to have a discussion before we got anybody involved from a legal standpoint, just to see test the waters. This might, you know, this might end right here.
Okay, I wanted to lay it out so that it was there. Michael?
Well, I was on this subcommittee with Donna and Pat, and I'd just like to read what I had written to Pat. So it appears that this big selling point of this is going to be safety. If that is going to happen, this would need to come from the rec center to encompass all residents, not just golfers. The perception is that, rightly or wrongly, will this be just another way for Big Brother to watch the behavior of the residents? If, as we discussed, there will be some minor financial incentive for golf residents to register their carts, such as a small trail fee, what would the incentive be for residents who don't golf to register their carts? If you're using it as a selling point of safety, in an emergency, the police, fire, and medical will have the license plate on the vehicle to contact whomever they need. Frankly, I don't think residents are going to believe this is a safety issue. It is a rule-breaking issue, and I think it should be presented in some way with safety as perhaps an added bonus. So what I would like to know is, how will there be safety if this is going to occur, let's say, after hours with the rec center, or on weekends when golf ops are closed? Who is going to be called?
Right.
You know, you're going to be calling. If there's an accident, I would hope a resident wouldn't think, oh, let me call golf ops. You should be calling 911. And with that, if golf ops were open, who has access to this information? If golf ops is closed, who would be getting this information? Frankly, when you charge a $5 fee, not everybody here wants to continue paying money. You know, I'm on the lower end of this. I just joined the golf committee because someone suggested I should be part of the solution. You know, that's up to you. Dues have been increased just the way it is, apparently. Greens fees have gone up. The range balls have gone from $2 to $3 to get 20 or 30 balls. I have no idea why that was done. And now, if you play golf 3 times a week and you choose not to register your cart, now you have an extra $15, you know, towards this. To me, I think this is a wrong thing to do. And frankly, if a vote came to this, there is no way I could support this the way it is.
Very good.
Any other comment? Kathy?
Yeah, I think at this point, I think it's too heavy-handed for what we're trying to accomplish. I talked about the player assistance, and I know, Michael, you think they're baloney, but I don't. And I think the player assistants need to be empowered to go up to the group, because already they ask you, oh yeah, what tea time are you? Oh, you switched around, and
Correct.
so who's here, and you get a name. That's happened to me in various groups. And so I think the players' assistants need to be a little more aggressive, if that's the right word. You have to have the right personalities to do that, instead of just looking at the clock and saying, okay, you're on time, yet the group in front of you is 2 full holes behind the group in front of them. And so I think really thinking about the training program for the players' assistants and what we want them to accomplish. The cart that's in the lake, I can tell you right now, if my cart was in the lake, you would know it was me. So that, because I would think anybody that rolls their cart into the lake or off the embankment, as long as they're not hurt at all, is going to inform golf operations, hey, my cart is in the lake on hole number so-and-so. I've arranged for somebody to come and haul it out. So I also don't think this committee, the golf committee, needs to expand a safety issue for the whole community. And I feel there's a little bit, actually there is encroachment in there. I do think, I want to go back to a comment that we heard publicly on, and I'm kind of, now I'm going different places, but the abuse of the rec cards. We have a policy that refers to abuse of rec cards. And so if somebody is abusing a rec card by using somebody else's to golf, I think there is a way to impose a fine. It doesn't have to be a fine, it can be a warning, whatever. I also think we can also do that on the golf course for carts that are pulling up too close to the green and, keeping track of this. Or, if you've got a group of 40 people and only 10 of them need to be residents, maybe we need to revisit that. Seriously, now I know why I can't get a tea time. But that's another topic. But I would not support this. I don't think this is the right way to go. I think there are some steps we can do before that and see if it's helpful, and then have another conversation on whether things have improved or not. A lot of this is communication, to let people know the kind of challenges we are having and share that, openly, so that we don't get the cart before the horse, so to speak.
Very good.
Thank you. One thing that I want to make clear to this committee is that we don't challenge each other. We make our comments, and we keep this civil.
Well, I just want to respond to that. First of all, my big thing with PAs, I was a former PA, as Pat will attest to, and I have no problem with PAs. My problem with PAs is that there was an inconsistency from PA to course to whomever you speak to. My wife likes to ride along with me. Sometimes a PA will come up and say, you can't have an extra cart on the course. Well, she has a rider thing. Riders are allowed. However, some PAs don't know that. And I will say this, like I've said to Pat previously, when I was a PA, on my last year, I went up to this one particular group, and they said to me, you're the only PA that ever gives us a hard time. You know what I said to them? Thank you, because that means I'm doing my job. PAs need to be more involved. Now, whether they get support from management or not, I cannot attest to any longer. However, it's not good when you ride along and you see a PA over there. Why isn't he closer to the groups around if there's a problem? If carts are running slow. I lost a visor last week on hole number 4. I asked the PA on hole number 4. I never saw a PA again. Why is that? You would think I'd see somebody on the backside. All I'm saying is we have the PA program. They should be more involved.
Al?
I think a lot of this could be handled with some education, some training. There's there's people out there that I don't know if they're purposely trying to do, something wrong, but I would sure hate to get to the point where we have a gotcha attitude. I don't like that at all. The only abandoned carts that I've ever seen on the golf course are those that were broken down, maybe a flat tire, maybe something else. But generally, they're not there the next day. The owners of those carts have made arrangements for them to be taken off or have repaired them themselves and gotten them out of there. The other thing is that if we're going to write somebody up because they've done something wrong, we have a group of 4 people out there, we're only going to get 50% of that group that we can highlight. So at that point, then I think we need to open it up for everybody can drive every cart everywhere on the course, because we're not going to get anybody, we're not going to be able to identify somebody that did something incorrectly if we have to ask the guy that I'm riding with to rat me out. I just don't see that's the right thing to do. I don't think this is the time or the place, for this right now.
Any other comments from the committee?
I think this was discussed once before. I don't know if it's a legal issue or not, but primarily during the summertime, would there be a way to have, let's say, a quote-unquote volunteer PA? I mean, I happen to enjoy the summer heat, and Pat knows I like going out in the afternoon, but I know that there are certain people out there that have not paid and do not belong there. Why can't we have a volunteer riding around the golf course, seeing, just asking for a receipt once in a while?
Well, there's a workman's comp issue on that. Correct. Yeah. And the amount of control we have over that volunteer. So that's how the PA program started originally. Okay.
Hey, Gary?
Just a quick question on, you talked about the liability. I'm under the impression that people do the right thing for the most part, and meaning that most of us that have a cart insure it and have liability insurance, right? Which is one of your ways that you could track things, supposedly.
Right.
However, I happened to go through Stardust this afternoon when I was playing, or when I was practicing, and I decided, well, I'm just going to look at the carts. Now, I don't know the laws, but there was 27 carts. 4 of them didn't have a license plate on the back. Now, I don't know if that's the law, if they're supposed to have or not supposed to have, or are they on the front? I have no idea. But I got thinking about the liability issue and thinking, well, does that mean these people don't have insurance? They don't care? I have no idea. So I think it would be a hard thing to administer myself at the moment, at least.
That's interesting. Those were 4 private carts.
Those were all private carts.
Yeah.
Not ours.
Right.
Yeah. They were private carts. I just decided to look at them closely as they drove by and count, because of this discussion that was going to be.
Right.
I thought, interesting. 4 of those don't have a license plate. What does that really mean?
Right.
I don't know.
Sounds like 4 people don't have it registered through the state of Arizona.
Well, just to add quickly, I have a 3-wheel cart, and it's considered an e-bike. And legally, I do not have to register it. I do not have to have a license plate. I do not have to insure it. Now, I chose to insure it because why not? But legally, you do not have to do that with these e-vehicles. Certainly a 2-wheel or a 3-wheel.
So, Michael, that's a speed issue. You don't go over 35 miles an hour.
Well, mine doesn't go over 25 miles an hour.
That is why you don't have to register.
But however, you can have the controller adapted to go a faster speed. So you could have it go 25, 35, whatever. Now, whether you choose to do that or not is up to you doing it and the person who chooses to do that for you. Whether it's legal or not, I could not tell you.
Yeah.
I do know that the batteries would wear out significantly faster.
Right.
But mine doesn't even go, the top's out around 22 or 23, something like that. But the point is, we don't need to have a license plate. It doesn't need to be registered. You can drive it however you want.
Your cart.
My 3-wheel electric car.
So the 4 that Gary's talking about, if they go over 35 miles an hour, They have to have lights, they have to have blinkers, they have to have a horn. I'm sure I'm missing something else. Seat belts, to be, because it's a motor vehicle. That's why you have to have a license plate on it. The fleet carts that we have at Golf Ops only cross streets. That's all they do. They're not allowed to go on the street for any extended period of time. Plus, mine only go 13 miles an hour. So it's two different animals. I'm interested in the 4 that don't have license plate because I've got 4 people out there that, you're right, might not have any insurance, and now we've opened up a can of worms, but that's a different story. But that's good feedback. I appreciate that. Not trying to throw anything, down anybody's throat or anything. I think it's just a conversation that we need to have in order to prep for the future, because this is coming, and how we deal with it needs to be handled in some form or fashion. So,
Thank you, Pat. Tom?
Yeah, Pat, I know that originally your idea was trying to figure out a better way to identify the people. And I think people need to understand that when you do find out someone that is doing something not safe, not under the rules, and you find out who they are, that you actually call these people up. You talk to them and try to get them set on the right path and understanding what's going on. I don't think you're out there to throw them out of the place in that, but I think people need to know that that you do try to take action with these people without threatening them and do things like this. I don't think stickers on a cart is a way to identify them. I don't really know an answer to how to do that. Carts without license plates, and I don't know this for a fact, but I heard quite some time ago that if you have a golf cart in a golf cart community and you drive it only from your house to the golf course, you don't have to register it. If you start taking it to the grocery store, the doctor's appointment.
different
you
deal.
do. But I don't know if that's fact or not.
Yeah.
That's just there. But I also know that you can't just call up the Department of Motor Vehicles and say, I want to know who owns this car with this license plate.
No.
They're not going to tell you.
Right.
You've got to be a law enforcement agency, or you're going to have to get a judge to give you a writ to go get that.
Right. And I'll share this with everybody. We have 27 PAs. I do not allow a certain PA to be on the same golf course. They have to work every golf course for 2 reasons. 1, I want them to know each facility. And 2, they now have 26 substitutes. And the third reason is, I don't want a golf course to be known for how good their PAs are and how bad their PAs are. I'm not going to play Stardust because they've got bad PAs. Okay? So we rotate those. They become more valuable to me, but the trade-off on that is to see tendencies or to see routines is tough, because they could be working at Desert Trails one day and they hand out your left tire is on the green, Mr. Jones, you can't do that. So they inform them, educate them. But that Mr. Jones might be playing another golf course 2 days from now, and my PA is at a different golf course. So to see a routine or habits might take 7, 12, 15 weeks before we get that information back that says, this Mr. Jones seems to be having a stack of these cards in his cart that tells him that he's not supposed to be doing this. So that's where we get stuck, is we can't see the habits quickly, good, bad, or indifferent. So that's the challenge on our end. Okay.
Thank you, Pat. I think it's a good discussion, and everybody pretty well has expressed their opinions. I'm going to open it up if there's anybody in the audience that would like to voice an opinion. Give your name, rec number.
Kent Aaron, and I would not like to give my rec number in public. I'll write it down. That's fine. Kent Perrin, Perrin. 2 issues. The first is registration of golf carts. I've been in the valley since 1970. lived in a lot of places. I've also rangered golf courses around the country. My first problem with registration is, and this may sound a little off the subject, but I lived in Westbrook Village in the 90s. We had a bunch of people move from Westbrook Village to Sun City West, but we never had anybody move from Sun City West to Westbrook Village because Westbrook Village was not known as the best retirement community in Arizona, and Sun City West is. And that's taken in Grand and others. I say that because I would caution you about stepping into more regulation, like registering golf carts. Maybe we should register golf bags, golf clubs, because somebody took my PXG wedge and didn't turn it in, so I had to buy another one. We don't want to register everything. And I think the residents would be very unhappy with a registration. The second subject is PAs. You can get a lot of milquetoast PAs. You can get a lot of dictator PAs. I've rangered golf courses, but those are private golf courses where rangers have power. And rangers say, do this or get off the golf course. You can't do that in Sun City West. We own the golf courses. A lot of people think they own the streets and other things, but we do own the golf courses. So you've got to be careful of how you enforce the rules. It's hard to do. And we've got a lot of PAs. I know Pat likes the program. I'll just digress for a minute. Several years ago, we were given a PA a bad time about not filling divots. He was riding around in his golf cart not doing anything. And we were judging him, more or less. On one hole, he came up and started taking pictures. And we said, what are you taking pictures for? He said, we were told to get troublemakers pictures so we could get them off the golf course. Nice day. Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, this registration thing is a no-starter.
Tom Jones, 113090. I'll put it down afterwards. I'm not a golfer. Harry, you know. I'm a salesman, right? I'm going to sell you a raffle ticket. No, I was aware of this from a meeting we had, and one of our members brought this up at our board meeting. That's why I'm here. And I think, and that's why I sat through and to make sure what was happening, and that I could go back and tell them. And I'm in ARC, so that's automobiles, but we also have golf carts and what have you. I want to read your moving forward. The goal should be to protect both the residents and the RCSCW organization by knowing who is using our facilities and what motorized equipment is being allowed on the property as well. That's a pretty broad term, and it can be construed, if you just read that, it's not on the golf course. It's any facility. And then the intent is to identify lost, abandoned, broken down carts in our community. That's much broader than on the golf courses, and help enforce rules we have in place. The best way to do this is register golf carts. If you want to register golf carts on the golf courses, I don't have a problem with that. But for the other residents who use a golf cart or golf car, they call it, to replace their own car or vehicle, you're probably going to get a lot of pushback from people thinking that their rights of driving out on the street, and whether it's with one with a license plate or not, I'm not going to argue the case, but I just wanted to let you know that the perception from reading this is much broader, and I think you'll need to drill it down, narrow it down, be more specific, and I think it may be something you can do.
Thank you, Tom. No, I'm not going to buy any tickets. Are there any
I got
other-
some for you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. Oh,
Marty Brodus, 125-878. You say it's not a trail fee. It is. You're just disguising with this different verbiage. And yes, you are correct. Somebody gets hurt, they're always going to go for the deepest pocket. The deepest pocket is the rec center. Most of us retirees don't have deep pockets, but I do carry a limited $1 million liability insurance because I know how bad of a golfer I am. I know I've hit houses and stuff, and if we're going to register the carts, what about the golf balls? Those leave the golf course facility, go out into the community. I got a lot of balls I got to register. What's the fee we're going to pull that number out of? It seems like a money grab. There are always going to be idiots out there. You can't fix idiots. So if the players would help police the situation, it would help. So I've learned coming here, there's a difference between a ranger and a PA, I guess. A ranger has more authority where I've come from. The ranger, don't mess with the ranger because he can yank you off the course. Like yesterday, I was at Pebblebrook. There was a foresman in front of us. We get to the back, and all of a sudden there's 3 walkers in front of us that weren't there just on the other side of the road. And it was really backed up, so we went back to the front and looped around the front again, checked in, and because it was going, we're not going to be behind 3 walkers now. Even though they're better golfers than me, I could still travel the short distance in my cart. So it just seems like we don't need a rule for everything. Just enforce the rules we have, or otherwise we can't police things already. We're already short of manpower. You can hire me. I'll be retiring in 15 working months, so I'll ride around. But it is a training issue thing. I'm a school bus driver, so I'm really easily can tell people what to do, what not to do. But if there's going to be no consequences, I got to collect 5 tickets, and then I get my hand spanked, or I can't get the tee time I want. It's like you're opening a can of worms that you really don't want to open up. So, but it is a training issue thing. It's a personality issue. I can tell anybody what to do. I can tell a brain surgeon. He'll laugh at me, but I'm going, I watched the YouTube video. And so that's it. Thanks.
any other comments, questions? Then we'll go on to the next item. I guess with the working group, you're done? Okay, I think it's, yeah. Maybe we should do a consensus. Do we want to drop this issue at the present time? No, just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm for dropping it, but You know, in Pat's defense, I mean, we've all seen what he's talking about. We've all seen the violations, and, you know, I feel like we're kind of caught in between now because this was formed for that specific reason, to try to help golf ops for that man's problem and everybody else of us that are golfers that see the same things.
Well, we need to come up with an A or EA.
On this specific
Yeah.
work group,
Yeah.
I'm an A.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. The work group is dissolved and we will not move this forward. .05, outstanding issues. Are there any outstanding issues? I think, Tom, you had.
Well, as the rules official, the only thing that I've got is is because Todd does not want golf carts in the desert area at the new Grandview, is that I've written the temporary local rule that falls under the USGA guidelines. The areas will be declared as no play zones, all desert area at Grandview. And people have to understand it's only going to be at Grandview and it's going to be for a limited time. I don't know how long that time is. It might be 6 months, might be a year. But at this point in time, it's a no play zone. If a player does play out of there, it's a 2-stroke penalty. If anybody actually penalizes anybody out here. Relief must be taken. It's free relief. We're declaring this a no play zone abnormal course condition as opposed to a no play zone penalty area. So there is no penalty. It's a free relief. You go to the nearest grass area, no closer to the hole, determine the point closest to where the ball lies, and drop a ball within a club length of that point and play it as long as you've taken complete relief. And then at Grandview, there are many areas where the cart path is actually butting up against the edge of the desert area. In those instances, that part of the cart path is considered the no play zone also. So you don't have to come out, drop it on the cart path, and then take relief from the cart path again. But that will be set up that way. And Pat, I would recommend that you contact the Arizona Golf Association about if it's going to change the slope rating of the course at all. I don't think it will. You already have. Okay. So for handicap purposes, it's not going to change that. That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Any other comments from the committee? Okay, seeing no other comments from the committee? Yes.
I basically just asked to get a copy of the local rule.
Oh. Okay, do we have consensus? To enter it into our minutes. Okay, we've got consensus. Okay. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'm looking at Lisa's computer. We have no comments from the video staff. So our next meeting is November 9th at 1:30 in Lecture Hall. Don't forget, on the 20th, the committee, we have a tour to see how Grandview is being done and coming out. So 10 o'clock, bring your golf cart, and the board will be invited. I'll invite them tomorrow. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.